Today on the Coach of What podcast, we have a very special guest. And, the reason why it's interesting, the reason why I talk about the coaching carousel so much is for a prime example of today. Maybe I should do an episode of all the coaches that we've, have changed, locations since we first did this episode or did an episode with them. But similar to J Cam, he, and just to reference, he took a job at Augsburg University after our episode with Century College. When he was there, he took that job, and now he's leading Augsburg volleyball. Looking back at one of our first episodes of the year, we did with Coach Bryce Vigneri. He was the head football coach at Butler Community College. Now he's within the Kansas University athletic department, within founding a position there. And the coach we have today is another similar situation. She, at the time of this episode, was at Virginia Union University, and now she took another job at actually her alma mater, which you'll learn about today. But a little bit about Coach. Last year at Virginia Union, she took her team to 21-9, and she actually had an athlete become CIAA Rookie of the Year. During her time there, she coached 2 All-CIAA front court athletes, 4 preseason All-CIAA athletes, 2 All-Rookies, 1 Rookie of the Year, 1 HBCU All-Star MVP. Just a bunch of accolades that she has, both as coaching individual athletes, but also as a team. So today, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Coach Tierra to the Coach of What podcast. She is the head women's basketball coach at Winston-Salem State University. With the world of coaching evolving and the carousel always changing, we're going to sit down with some coaches and we're going to figure out what they coach, how they coach, and most importantly, why they got into this profession. My name is Kason Wilkinson, and I am your host of the Coach's Why podcast.
That's a great question.
That was my Coach's Why.
Welcome back to another Coach of What podcast. We have a very special guest in the house. I actually had to pull out the basketball hat. I wasn't rocking that one earlier, but we're talking to a basketball coach here today, so I had to pull it out today. Coach Tierra Terry out of Virginia Union University. Coach, thank you so much for joining today. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Can't complain. Excited to talk a little bit basketball today. I'm very excited, so I appreciate you jumping on. And just so you guys know, if it is your first time listening to one of our shows, I always like to pass it along to Coach and let her talk about herself for a little bit. So, Coach, if you wouldn't mind letting us know kind of where you grew up, when you got involved with all sports, but maybe in particular the sport of basketball, because obviously that's what we're coaching. So take it away.
Okay. I've grown up several places. I've been international. I've been in the country. I just grew up all over. Probably the longest place that I've lived would be Paris and Lyon, France, and then went to high school in North Carolina. So in between all that, you had New York, you had Utah, it was a lot of different places. So I've had a lot of different influences, but I did finish my high school in North Carolina and attended Winston-Salem State University on a basketball scholarship. So I have been around basketball my whole life.
Okay.
Yeah, my whole life. So my dad played and then he ended up coaching. So he still coaches to this day. So I guess you could say I got it honest.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So you are obviously all over the, as you said, all over the world, right? So when you lived, I know you said, what was it? I know you said in Paris, right? But what was it? What was the actual city, state? I don't know exactly what it'd be called over there, but what was it called over there?
So I lived in Paris and then we moved to Lyon. So Lyon is another city, probably, I think 3 hours from Paris, maybe.
Okay, I got you. Okay, so what was it like living there for all those years? I know you said you kind of lived there for a little bit longer than some of the other places. So what was it like living there and then coming back to the States? And I guess let me start off. Were you able to play basketball over there in Lyon?
Yeah, I did in the youth leagues. So
I gotcha.
I was over there playing. I was probably. Let me see. I was between 7 to 14, so playing in the little Gerland Mouche League. So yeah, I definitely got a chance. And growing up in France, I played every sport you can imagine. So I've done football, handball, gymnastics, volleyball,
Yeah.
track. I've done it all.
Okay.
Yeah, so you were really involved with everything. So, obviously you were able to still be involved with the world of basketball, but I guess really sports, right? Until kind of that high school age. So what was the, just experiencing that? What was the maybe the biggest change or maybe some of the differences between athletics and obviously I know you maybe not be able to speak for everybody, right, in France or maybe in that area, but just for you, what was the difference between Lyon and that area's youth sports and maybe their practices, drills, whatever the case was to kind of prepare you for that higher level, quote unquote, right, high school basketball, and then coming back to United States and playing in that, next level. I mean, what was kind of the differences in the sports themselves from there to here?
Oh, that's a good question. And basketball is big in France, but it's gotten bigger over the years. I would say growing up, probably football, soccer was probably one of the biggest things there. So
Mm.
the basketball practices they were somewhat similar. I mean, everybody's big on conditioning, of course. So I would say in Europe, being in shape is a priority in everyone's life. So that's always a big thing, just conditioning wise. The European game at the time was a little more, um, I guess you could say, like shooting is a big thing. So, you had to be
Okay.
able to shoot the ball.
Yeah.
But when you look at the sport itself, a lot of similarities. So coming to high school basketball in North Carolina is a big basketball state, and
Yeah.
that's originally where my parents are from. So having my dad as an AAU coach, it was a good preparation. He stayed on top of me, and I had some tough high school coaches that I appreciate to this day. That once again, conditioning was huge, but we
Right.
had to
Right.
show that we had several skill sets. You had to be able to, at the guard position, handle the ball, had to be able to shoot some. I've always emphasized defense. I think I started off as a defender and then
Okay.
ended up, working on my offensive game later. But I took pride in being a defender. So there's a lot more similarities than differences, I would say.
Right.
So that was a lot. I love that. There's a few things about AAU I love to touch on AAU, especially in today's world, right? Like the pay to play, right? There's obviously a lot of things there, but yeah, I like that there are some similarities. And I was just kind of curious, right? Because as you look into the game of basketball in today's world, um, maybe I'm naive to the game of women's basketball, but I would say the NBA in particular, international players are really starting to make a little bit more of that presence, right? Like you're seeing, Luca, the Joker, you're seeing all these different players, right, that have the history of coming from different countries,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of making that, making their name, right, in America. And so I guess the reason why I asked that was like, is there something different that they're doing in the youth that is getting them, to be able to, they can step into a high level like that? And I think it's other sports too, right? Baseballs, there's a lot of
Yeah,
international guys, but that's why I asked that question, just because there's a lot of things there, and I think France was thinking in Olympics was it France versus America too, right? So that's
yeah,
you know.
that was a tough one for me. Yeah, I mean, I will say one thing is um, the pro leagues, you can be 16 or whatever on a pro team.
Hmm.
So that might prepare you better for coming over to play, in the NBA, WNBA,
Yeah.
whatever it may be, because you're playing at a high level of competition all the
Yeah.
time. And France does have a ton of athletes. France is definitely a country that has um, people that can compete at a high level
Yeah.
and good
Yeah.
basketball players. There's such a mixture of cultures. So you see
Mm.
different cultures coming in. And
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's a surprise. France has a huge African population, and
Right.
that they they can play basketball. I
Absolutely.
mean, in France, you can play basketball, but in those countries, when they come over and just mix with the French culture that's already there, it just creates a different type of environment as well.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. Absolutely. Now, as you were mentioning, right, a little bit about like how you were a guard, right? Like that was what you did, and defense was kind of your first priority. At least that's how you felt, like you were defense first, and then your game evolved on the offensive side. Um, as a guard, this is more just like basketball like IQ question, I think, right? Um, but what about the guard makes it so that position, I should say, so important for teams to go deep, right? Like, and I'm asking this because I can't remember what Juju's position was. I think she was a guard, right? Obviously, we know she messed up, or she tore ACL, I believe, in the Sweet 16, maybe final the Elite Eight. Can't remember which one it was. Right before UConn, right? And obviously they had a really good backup, but they weren't able to, it wasn't the same power as what Juju brought, right? So in a case like the guard, and you can look at every sport, or I should say every team at different levels, right? But what makes the guard so important and so, you know, it, to a team, what makes it so important, and to whether you can kind of maybe win or maybe lose if you have a good guard play. Jeez, sorry, I can't word today. Don't know what's going on.
You're fine. Yeah, every player is important, of course, but guards just bring a certain IQ. You have to have a certain IQ to be especially, you can't have a good team without a good point guard. And I will stand beside that. You cannot have a good team without a good point guard. Point guard is the extension of what the coach is trying to do on the floor. But a point guard is someone that I expect you to, if there's a situation where I can't call out a play, I expect you to know what to do. So that takes a lot of pressure, having that high IQ to know, okay, right now we got to do something quick. Let me run this play. Let me do this. Let me execute this. And then you have to know every position. So as a point guard, I have to know what you're supposed to be doing on any given play. So now I have to know my position plus 4 other people, and I have to know how to navigate you and tell you, you're incorrect, you're correct, you're doing this.
It's kind of like a quarterback almost, in a sense, in a quarterback of the floor, right?
Yeah, for sure.
That makes sense, absolutely. So, and sorry, I can definitely, I'm gonna start ranting about the positions and schemes and stuff. I definitely want to talk to you about that. But I find it interesting. So you played AAU, right? Your dad was the AAU coach. You kind of, you obviously played overseas. You came back to the States in North Carolina. But when it comes to your, and I know you got the chance to play at the next level at Winston-Salem. So when you were playing the game, right, and you were, transitioning into the upper levels, when did you realize that you could go to college? Was there a moment? Was there a team? Was there just coaches coming to talk to you? When did you realize you could go play? And then the second question to that is, what was your recruiting process like? Was there a lot of coaches coming to talk to you? Did you go on visits? I mean, kind of relive those days before choosing Winston-Salem.
Right. I had an unfortunate situation with my recruiting process. I was heavily recruited out of high school, and then going into my AAU, last summer of AAU, going into my senior year, I tore 5 ligaments in my knee. So completely blew out my knee. Yeah, completely blew it out.
Yeah.
So some of those offers, obviously went out the window. And took me a good little while to recover, but I was determined to play college basketball. That was always my life goal, and I was not going to let anyone stop me. I had doctors say, you should just go ahead and give it up. It's already messed up. Like, just go ahead and give it up. And I'm like, never. So
that ain't me. Yeah.
Yeah, never. So I always said I wanted to play D1, and I just want to put this out here though. Any division is great. Like, don't get caught up in the division. Any division's great. Dream what you want to dream, but like, don't feel discouraged if you don't get to that high level.
Huge.
So
I love that. Yeah. That's
yeah,
facts,
like,
for sure.
So after I hurt my knee, I was getting I will say I was thankful for Lenore Ryan, Coach Barefoot recruiting me still. North Carolina Central, Jolie Robinson still was going to give me a chance. And then Winston-Salem State, Coach Williams came in the picture. And ironically, basically we were transitioning to the MEAC. So I still ended up playing Division I basketball, which is really
Sweet.
cool. So
Yeah.
through it all, I just stuck with it. But I'm so grateful forever to Winston-Salem State for taking a chance on someone that, hurt their knee. My recruiting process, so I did a combination of things. My high school did team camps. We would go to, North Carolina, Duke, all these different NC State, different places to get Wake Forest, because that was actually my dream school initially because that's where my dad played. So I
Okay.
wanted to,
Yeah.
play at Wake Forest as well. But, and then, your game speaks for itself always. So I was fortunate enough to, like I said, play AAU for my dad, and he was tough, and he knew our goals were to play college basketball. So he really treated us a certain way to get us to a scholarship. So I was
Right.
fortunate enough to do that. This was before all the circuits and everything.
Oh,
We
yeah,
just
yeah.
played and
Yeah.
competed, and so I had a good team that highlighted what we did well. We just stuck to our strengths and just played hard and, like I said, defended and had a passion for wanting to be out there. So sometimes even if you're not the top player on the team, if you show this certain passion or you show you're a great teammate or you show you're a lockdown defender, people are still going to notice you because you
Yeah.
never know what a college coach is looking for, to
Yeah.
fill their roster. So, of course, winning games always helps because when you win games, you continue playing in tournaments and go further, so you get more exposure. But um, having good coaches that advocate for you, that are
Yeah.
really in your corner, that are not worried about how much attention they get, that are worried about the right fit for you. And then
Yeah.
just going on unofficial visits, especially at our level, Division II level now. We invite a lot of players to come in and play against our team in a workout to see what they look
Okay.
like.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, stuff
cool.
like that matters because you're like, okay, let's see how she competes against some current college players
Yeah.
just to see. So,
No, I
yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Kind of keep I think that helps you visually, right? Like as you're trying to decide, and I'm assuming, right? Because I don't know how many girls you carry on your roster, and I know some D2s have JV teams. Like I don't know if you're one of those teams that have a JV, but realistically speaking, right, you're trying to find girls who are going to be your varsity starters or be able to develop into it, right? So I like that you bring them in to really see and how they compete against them, and I think even if they don't have the best of game, right, best of scrimmage with points or whatever, if they're out willing to compete and you can see that, right, as they're somebody with a lot of potential, I think that helps you and even the athlete, and if they're even willing to do that, like it shows like, hell yeah, I'll come in and try to do what I can do in front of you, right, and kind of shows a lot of things all in one little cluster, if you would, before you decide to sign them or whatever your process is. So I like that you do that. Now you mentioned like the D1, D2, like okay, like you can dream whatever you want, but you're gonna find good basketball anywhere, realistically, right? Doesn't matter what level, JUCO all the way up to D1, high level D1. But you were an AAU player, and as you mentioned, like before all the circuits, really the last like 10 years or so has kind of, maybe a little bit longer, but I'd say probably the last 10 years has really kind of gone huge in AAU basketball, right? Chino Hills, IMG, right? I guess IMG's always been a thing, but blah, blah, blah down the line. But do you think that it's important for athletes to ball? Like, do you think it's more important for athletes to ball in AAU or in their high school for them to be like seen, or for you to kind of see, what you'd prefer, I guess, whenever you're recruiting them? I think it's a hot topic because not everybody can afford AAU basketball, right?
Right.
Just because it's a lot to probably buy into a team or whatever the case is, versus some kids just don't have that opportunity. So it's just a hot topic, just a question opinion for sure. But as a college coach, where do you kind of see yourself looking a little bit more, and maybe what's more important to you?
Oh, that's a good question. Because sometimes you have good players that are on these high profile teams and they can't showcase how good they are because the people in front of them are just that much better. So sometimes you can't even see a talented player in AAU. And then sometimes, like high school for me can be important because I want to know what kind of practice player you are, and I want to
Mm-hmm.
know your work ethic in that type of setting. So sometimes I go to high school workouts, and it may not even be a basketball workout. I might go to a weight room session or a conditioning session just to see how you push yourself in these environments. And high school can be um, can be kind of telling too because your team is either really good or or unfortunately
Or
not
not.
very good.
Yeah.
So how are you reacting when you're winning by 20? Like, are you still taking it serious? Are you goofing off now because you're winning by 20? If you're losing by 20, are you still fighting or did you just give up?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
I think they both have good purposes. Um, and you can see two different sides of a player actually, because sometimes, they might be the man in high school and they might be a number in AAU.
Yeah, that's
So
fair. Yeah. They can
it's
kind of play. They
hard.
can.
You can kind of see it from both sides for sure. That's fair. I didn't even think of the AAU like being on the bench type of thing where you might have paid your way there, but or whatever the case is, you made the team, but you might not actually be seen. So that's a great uh, observation or approach to that for sure.
Yeah. So it just depends. Like you said, there are some people who can't afford to be on those big teams, and sometimes they might play in a local tournament and everyone can't get to them. So, right now the high school recruiting is shaky, as we all know, because of the transfer portal and
Yeah. Which we'll
the
get to, by
new,
the way.
yeah, and
Yeah,
all
we'll
these
get
new
to that
rules.
talk. Yeah,
Yeah, so yeah, both of them are beneficial in their own way, but
for sure.
it just depends on each coach, really, what you're.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, what your preferences as a coach and stuff. That's fair. Um, so when did you realize that coaching is what you wanted to do? Like I know you said your pops was a coach, and you got sounds like you got to be around a lot of different coaches, at least overseas, right? Come back here, and then in high school, and obviously collegiately. So when did you realize like, all right, this is what I want to do?
Whew, I think I fought it for a long time.
Okay. Yeah.
I was a camp counselor with my dad's summer camps. Once I became like 15, I could start coaching at the camps, and I really enjoyed it. But I thought I was going to be a counselor. I went and got my master's degree, and then I went and helped one of my grad student friends. She coached at a high school, and I went and helped her out a little bit and was like, okay, yeah, I still kind of miss this.
Yeah.
My dad was the first person to tell me I was going to be a coach, and I was like, no, I'm going to be a counselor, not listening. And but he saw something in me that was like, no, you're going to be a coach. And it was no later than um, I forgot. Wait, I think December is when I finished my master's program. I worked for a year, and next thing I know, of all places, Winston-Salem State opens an assistant coaching job, and that's where I get my start at.
Okay, yeah. So you started at Winston, and so where did you go from Winston, and how did you find your way to Virginia Union?
So from Winston-Salem State, I went to Western Carolina,
Okay.
and then from Western Carolina, I went to William and Mary, and
Yep.
Virginia Union just so happened to open up, and I have been always said that is one thing I never changed my mind on. I always wanted to be a head coach,
Mm.
and when the opportunity opened, I was like, oh man. I started off as an assistant in the CIAA because Winston went back to the CIAA. So I started off as an assistant. Why not try it as a head coach? And
Yeah.
Richmond's a cool area. Virginia Union has a basketball legacy. So why not?
Okay.
Let's go
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah. Might as well dive in. Absolutely. So obviously you started as an assistant and you worked your way to the head coach, right, at Virginia Union. So let me start here. How long have you been at Virginia Union? When you got that head coaching job.
So we started in COVID. We couldn't play that year. So 5 years at Union, but 4 on the court.
Absolutely. Okay, cool. So you've been there for 4 years. So what are some challenges that you feel like you've had to overcome, or maybe that you weren't expecting, right? Going from I know you as assistant, you do a lot, but when you get that head title, right, it's a whole different ball game for, I don't care who you are.
Yes.
So like, what was some of the challenges that you faced, whether just not knowing something or just like, all right, this is what we had to face year 1 to where now we're in year 4 or year 5, that you've been able to overcome.
Yeah, they aren't joking when they say all you do is shift the seat and it becomes crazy. Um,
Yeah. Go
but
from co-pilot to pilot, it's a whole different ball game for sure.
yeah, so the biggest thing is making hard decisions and making quick decisions. That's probably one of the biggest adjustments you have to make is like you don't really you can ask for input, but ultimately you have to make
It's
the
your
decision.
call. Right.
So it's like you just got to live with it. You got to try to make the most informed decision and say this is what I'm going with, and here it is.
Yeah.
So, so that was an adjustment. And then just learning as an assistant, how do I put this? As an assistant, you can be a little more friendly, cordial, closer
Mm-hmm.
to the
Yeah,
players.
yeah, right.
And that was a difference for me because I am a relationship person. And I'm not saying I can't have relationships, but it is different because now you're making calls that they don't like, or you're making, you
Yeah.
got to make decisions. And so they're looking at you like, I thought you liked me. And it's like, this has nothing to do with me liking you.
Yeah,
So
It's not a personal thing. Yeah.
not at
yeah,
all. So you do
absolutely.
have to shift that over a little bit.
Yeah. So
Now, are you talking more of a just quickly? Is that more of like, I guess it's probably all of it. I was going to ask you, is it more of a scheme thing or is it just like a rotation thing? But I'm assuming it's all of it, right? Like you have to be able to make on the fly decisions from 2-3 zone to man versus full court press versus like, oh, they're running smalls, so we got to try to keep up or whatever. Like you have to know your strengths, but also know who you want in that to guard, right? Whatever if they're switching every screen, whatever the case is, right? Like you have to kind of know that as well. So I'm assuming it's not just one area, right? It's the whole 9 yards.
It's the whole, yeah, like you said, something as small as this year in the tournament for one game, we said, oh, we got to put Maya in for defense, one possession. Like just a little, quick adjustment like that. Like,
yeah,
and they can't go to the basket because she's standing there. So those types of things, and even something simple as someone was late today. What do we do about it? Because
yeah,
just little things that have to be handled, but you just have to
yeah,
think about how to handle them.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's fair. No, I think that's good. Like you have to know your standards, your morals, all that stuff that you have to hold everybody accountable to. So what are we doing to do that today? Um, so whenever you think about influential coaches in your life, whether it's a youth coach, AAU coach, high school coach, whatever coach in your life, and you can answer this question maybe even like on the mentor side, like when you got into coaching, maybe somebody who was influential to you. Go ahead, who were they? Or yeah, that's sorry. As I said, words weren't wording, so let me see how I want to word that. What coach was influential to you? You can answer however you want. And then the second part of that question is what is one thing that you've taken from them and been able to implement into your program, whether it's schematics, like on the court stuff, drills, practices, something like that, or maybe like the off court stuff, relationships, study halls, whatever the case is, right? Community buy-in, whatever you want to answer to that. So yeah, there's a kind of I guess it's a two-parter. Yeah, there. Who were they, and what you take from them to implement into your program?
Yeah, so well, obviously, my dad is one. He just he knew what it took to make us potential D1 athletes, or he's had players go play professionally as well themselves, and he's seen it, he's been there, he's done it. It's funny that he took over girls probably only because of me, but he ends up coaching girls and has been
yeah.
coaching girls since I was 14 now. So my dad is one. He just always taught us to work hard, and he never let us quit, and that's the biggest thing. Like he told us, if you quit at one thing, you'll quit at life. So I have always carried that with me. That was just important to me. My high school coach, my second high school coach, Coach Stanley, he really he was there for me, when I transferred schools. And he was just a person that he pushed me to my limits, but he would also come back and say, I'm doing this because I believe in you, and I've always taken to that type of coaching anyway, because I feel like if you're coaching me hard, you do care. Some days you're like, God, can you get off me, please? But
Yeah,
for the most part, it's beautiful because it's like, okay, you care about me a lot. I appreciate
absolutely.
that. And then, like Coach Williams, like I said, they took a chance on me at Winston. He didn't have to take a chance on someone who got hurt the way I did, but he took a chance on me, and I'll be forever grateful for that because
He
I
didn't
just
have to.
knew,
Yeah,
yeah, I knew what talent level I had, and it was devastating to see all that crumble. But I was determined to show the people that, believed in me that I could still do something.
yeah,
So I'm just that type of person. Like, you believe in me, I'm gonna fight to the end for you.
yeah,
So, and I'm not just saying this because I'm a coach, but coaches are special people, man. We really care about other people's kids.
yeah,
you
for
know,
sure.
we I literally just tweeted about Dawn Staley. They were talking about how she was on the bench, so frustrated. And I was just saying, people just don't understand how much we pour into this, and we're always criticized, but we're not appreciated enough. So,
And the higher the level you are, it seems like the more you get that criticism too, right? Like I think you get criticized no matter where you are, but Don Staley's level, right? Like Pat Smith's level, right? That high level D1, Geno's, of course, like you're always gonna get that criticism. Like when Geno started losing, right after he went on that like what 8-10 year streak of
yeah,
winning, undefeated, 90+ wins or whatever it was, undefeated. Brianna Smith and Maya Moore, all those top girls, right? And then they scattered falling. Like I was younger, but I still remember like, oh, the dynasty's over, blah blah blah, like all this
hmm,
stuff about him. And it's like, bro, like you expect us to do this forever? Like it's not
right,
realistic. Like if other coaches are gonna learn the system, learn how to compete, and get good at recruiting, just as good. And it's just like there's that under like as fans of the game, people are always quick to throw. And like obviously I saw some about Dawn right in the bench as you probably tweeted about, and like she's cussing and stuff and like so frustrated, which I can understand. Like you got blown out in a natty game, but at the same time, like as a coach, she's been consistently, she the last 5 years or more, Dawn Staley's kind of been, South Carolina I should say, has been that team, right?
hmm,
And they've been there every year. So it's like, okay, you can take it. I don't know. Like it's one of those things. The higher the level you are, the more you get from people, as like outside people that shouldn't matter, but they do. But I think only coaches and maybe people who have been in that high level, or no, not even high level, just any level of coaching and playing, understand why she was so frustrated. It wasn't because of the loss. It was because how much she cared about those people and those athletes and the excuse me, obviously the community, the program, everything, right? It's more than just wins and losses. So
for
I
sure.
just find it interesting that people, outside people always have something to say. What they don't volunteer to coach, they don't put the time and effort
Right,
into coaching. You just think that you show up and these people can win.
right. Come try it, please.
Yeah, yeah,
Please
yeah,
come
good,
try
yeah.
it.
I need help on Tuesday, Thursdays. Come help me out.
Right, please come
Yeah.
try it.
So
So,
it's just one of those things that like I just think it's interesting when people do that. And yeah, the higher level you are, I'm sure D2 gets it too, right? Like any level, whenever you're a team that as soon as you get to that pinnacle, whether you're a tournament team like Houston, right, and men's side, they've made it to the tournament the last 4 or 5 years. They've been, a number one ranked team multiple years. Blah blah blah. They can't win the national title, but it's like, okay, like we've made it closer this year than any other year, but you still have people criticizing coach, right, and blah blah blah. So it's like, I don't know. It's just it's one of those things. It's one of those things. That's a whole probably a conversation for another podcast
cast episode.
episode, but it's just hard because you see it, and it's like you just have to trust the process, right? It's not everybody's built for it.
You know,
Sure.
it's not.
Yes, it is a calling.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. So kind of going into like the development of athletes, right? To get to the national title, to get to the tournament, like you said, Virginia Union had a really good name kind of prior to you getting here, whether it was recently or historically, whatever. But like, how do you get somebody to maybe come in as a freshman who might be, like you said, have a lot of potential? They're not starting, they're kind of a bench player or maybe just a practice player year one, but by year two, year three, year four, they are now now they're the person, right? Now they're starter. Now they're developing to a point where you can trust them not only for minutes, but now they're in your starting rotation, right? Or whatever the case is. Like, how do you develop and where do you kind of start with development in the game of basketball at the college level to get them from, here to here, which obviously plan B or whatever, or not plan B, point B is starting.
On the development side.
I have to give her credit because she deserves it. But our freshman, Maya Charles, she got Rookie of the Year in our league this year.
Okay.
And she just deserves that credit. So
shout out to her.
Yes, she came in. And I think that's the reason I say this too, is because it starts in your recruiting process of like for us, we go out and say, can this player make the all rookie team? Can this player be a potential Rookie of the Year? So we want freshmen that want to come in and compete.
Yeah.
So I think it starts with that mentality first. But as far as development, yes, Coach Freeman has been phenomenal. She works them out. She gets them ready. We do skill development throughout the year. Like, we don't just stop it because, like, oh, okay, you're fine.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Like, so I think the biggest thing is starting with a competitor. You want someone who wants to compete, who wants to say, I want to play as a freshman. And then the other thing is you have to have a good culture, obviously, where the other players are pushing the freshmen too. So, Maya made Rookie of the Year, but they're still in practice going, use your left hand, like. So people that want and people that just want her to succeed. So that's the biggest thing, I think, is this year we had some cohesion. We had people who wanted to see other people succeed. So with that being said, they were pushing them. They were encouraging them. If we were on them all day, they're going and encouraging them, saying, oh, you're going to be all right, whatever. So just that willpower of wanting to get better is the first step to me. And then, as coaches, we take it over and we work on what we see as your weaknesses. So like in the off season, you need to be working on this. And then by next year, you should be looking different than you are now. And just emphasize certain things every day in practice.
Brick by brick, right? You got to start somewhere and keep grinding. But I like that you're trying to find somebody who wants to compete. I love that. And I actually took a role as a college coach this year. So I'm stepping into the collegiate ranks for wrestling. So, that's kind of the one thing I'm looking for in my recruiting process as well, which I don't know if I've announced that on here yet, but if I haven't, then now you all know. So Coach Terry, you're the first one that I announced that to on the show too. So
yeah, shout out to you.
Congratulations.
I appreciate that. Yeah. But yeah, so it's one of those things, like, as I'm talking to athletes as well, like, I want to see, like, are you willing to step in to this room and toe the line against whoever it is, right? And, as we look into the, future, right, between freshman year and senior year, are you wanting to get your hand raised? Are you wanting to get on the podium? Are you wanting to be an All-American or a national champ? If you have that mentality as a senior in high school, right, or going into freshman year, that's what I want to see, because that shows that you want to work for, right? So I love that you said it starts with somebody who wants to grind and go through all the ups and downs of individuals and film studies, all the stuff that I'm sure you do as a basketball coach specifically, right? To get them to not only their goals, but if you help them reach their goals, that's going to help you reach your goals as a team, right? It all kind of goes side by side, and we'll talk about your philosophy and some of your success ideas as we go, but I think that you hit it around the head. I'm new to it, but that's kind of what I think as a college coach, in order for you to get there, is find somebody who wants to ball out, right, in your terms. So But speaking of like recruiting process for athletes, where do you find your athletes, right? Like you are in, the Southeast. So obviously there's a lot of talent down in that region. And so like where do you find your athletes, and then what about their athletes are you looking for? It sounded like you're looking for somebody who has the mentality who wants to come in and compete. So you may not have to answer that. If there's something else you want to add, you can. But if there's anything else, what else do you look for in an athlete? But where are you finding them, and what's tournaments, in season, film, like whatever. Answer however you want.
Yeah, we go wherever the talent's at. We don't really have a specific area. Our roster is pretty vast. We actually have a player from Mississippi this year, so we have gone up and down. And I have strong Brooklyn ties because.
Oh yeah, New York. Yeah. Sorry, that was my intention of a New York. Yeah.
The Bronx.
New York, the Brooklyn.
You heard?
Yeah,
it's funny
because me and my other coach, we talk about all the time. Like we'll just say, you heard, word to your mother, or whatever. We'll just say New York slang and stuff. I don't know. It could be disrespectful, but that's just what we be hearing. So I always find it funny because that's the New York tongue, I guess. So anyways, didn't mean to interrupt you, but yeah.
No, you're fine. No, I code switch a lot too because that's part of my upbringing too. So Brooklyn is near and dear to me. So I've had 2 players from Brooklyn this year. But Virginia is obviously going to be big for us because in-state tuition is just different automatically.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we go wherever the talent is. We go, if we can get to the tournaments, we're there, so we might go to Run for the Roses, Battle in the Borough in Kentucky type things because you can see so many players at one time. Boo Williams is a great resource for us down the street. And Georgia always has good tournaments. So we're just, AAU-wise, we go wherever we can fit in our resources at the time. High school, we try to somewhat stay local, but I'm in the DMV a lot. Like we've had 2 verbal commitments from Maryland. So we stay in that area a lot. It's close to us. We can get there in the middle of the week for a high school game or something. We do watch film, but I'm a person that I really, really prefer to see you in person if possible. So JUCO, we might, JUCO nationals, transfer portal obviously is huge. And that's one time where it may be hard to see someone play in person. So you do have to go based off the synergy film or whatever. But, because I've been in this for a while now, I'll make a phone call and say, hey, did you see her play live? Did you? So, if we have someone that we trust that's seen you play and they're like, no, you need to take a look at her. I know your league, blah, blah, blah. Then we'll probably take a chance on you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's fair. I like that you are, you're willing to look everywhere, and having those connections is huge. At least what I've been told, right, is having people that you can trust to make a phone call to, and they'll point you in the right direction. So that's fair. Yeah. So what are some, when it comes to like the transfer portal, like you said, at a Division II level, where I know everybody talks big about like the D1, which maybe it's just because D1 is what everybody talks about, right, on TV, but it still affects you as well, right? Because D2 guys, or women, I should say, can jump out or in the transfer portal just as easy. So how does that affect you? And then, are you kind of looking for athletes? I know you said you kind of look into the transfer portal a little bit, but are you looking for like girls laterally? Are you looking for those D3 transfers? Looking for D1 transfers? I mean, what are you looking in the transfer portal if you're using it? And then how does that affect you? Like, how is the transfer porting affecting Virginia Union and you as a coach?
Right.
As a whole?
So it's been positive for us for the most part. I do try to keep a mixture of portal and high school. We may not bring a lot of high school, but we'll bring a couple, 2, 3, 4 maybe high school players to kind of balance it out, because I still like to have that foundation, that culture. But the transfer portal has been good for us. We've had Division I transfers, but now that the NIL and the new rule that you can transfer multiple times, and the JUCO rule where you have to go back D1, that's changed some things as far as people dropping from D1 to D2 now. So I'll say one of our most successful players this year actually came from within the conference when St. Aug, the college athletics department, just shut down. So we lucked out and got one of their players, and she was phenomenal for us. So
Absolutely.
the lateral, it doesn't bother me because I'm like, the league, you've been playing well, you kind of know the scenery. So,
Yeah.
and then Division II wise, I tell people all the time, like, don't think because it's Division II that it's going to be easy. It's
Absolutely.
there's competition here too.
I've heard people talk bad about D2. Like I wrestle, so I actually went to a D2 school right as an athlete. I wrestled and played football, but wrestling was obviously what I went there for. But realistically speaking, I've heard people who went D1, right? Just personal friends. This is nothing like I've talked to coaches or anybody, but I've talked to people about I've always said wrestling in particular, you're gonna find good wrestling anywhere you go, right? That the top, if you're not D1, right? But if you're top level JUCO, top level D3, whatever the case is, those top 4, top 5 guys of every level that's not D1 could probably step into a D1 program. Maybe not the highest level D1, but they can step into a D1 program and probably compete or make a roster, right? But back to what I was starting. When it comes to basketball, this guy played D1 basketball and a few other people, they've played basketball, whatever. And they always say D1 is the best basketball in the country, which is fair, right? I guess for your D1, Cooper Flags, whatever, right? Paige, gosh dang it. I can't remember her last name now. But Paige, Butkers?
Beckers, yeah.
Yeah, Beckers, there we go. Yeah, take Paige Buckets. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. But and then they'll say well, D2 is probably the second hard, or not D2, JUCO's the second hardest and D3 is the third. And basically what I've heard is that D2 is the weakest conference. And I was or the level. And I was like, how in the heck do you do that? Right. I don't know if you've ever heard that in the game of basketball, but I've heard that from people around me that have either watched it, whatever, played it. And they say that. So why do people say that about D2? I don't know if you've ever heard it, but what makes you think people may say that? And then what's your argument to that, I guess, when people may say that D2 is not as strong as even D3 or JUCO or NAI or whatever the case is, right? What would be your argument to that conversation?
I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah,
I think it's ridiculous.
That's the PG version, folks. I know
Yeah,
that.
it is.
It is.
is.
Audience, yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. I have D1 programs that don't want to play us. So if we're that bad, if we're that bad, why wouldn't more D1 sign up to, play us
Play, yeah.
And I've seen people from our league beat Division I programs. So I don't know where they're getting that from.
Yeah.
But
I just think it's more of the idea that maybe they're just ignorant to the game itself, maybe of what D2 brings, because the second best, I guess, quote unquote, right, the second highest level. And I think because JUCO has made such a big impact in the world of sports the last probably forever, but Last Chance U made a big thing about it. So probably last 20 years, I'd assume, right, of what JUCO's done with kids rather going to JUCO than to D2 or D3 to hopefully get that D1 opportunity, or the bounce back idea that most D1 kids are going back to JUCO. I don't know. Maybe that's the reason, but I personally think that you're going to find good sports wherever. And I actually turn on, there's, the conference networks that D2, D3, all these guys have. I follow RMAC, I have Mountain East, all these, what is that? Pacific, or it's PBC, it's Florida, HC, whatever the case. I follow all these networks to watch it because I'd almost rather watch lower level sports than watching high level just because of the competition. So I don't know. I'm not saying that. I promise. I'm not. I went D2, so trust me. I feel you. I was a D2 guy. I'll represent D2 forever, but I think it's kind of funny when people may argue that, especially in basketball, that there's other, some of those levels are weaker than others, but like you said, if you can compete with, lower level, or you can compete with D1s as a program in D2 or even JUCO, don't come for my head right now. We're good. We got it,
Yeah.
So I don't know, just the argument.
Oh yeah, I'm going blank on the team right now, but the coach that brought all his D2 players to Division One, I think it was St. Peter's. But he brought all
Oh,
his D2
from
players to Division One and won.
At USMB or UC San Diego, right? He did that same thing too. Oh, but no, it was St. Peter's.
St.
St.
Peter's
Peter's.
coach. Yeah,
He did do that, yeah.
Yeah,
San
and
Diego
now
also did that too, a little bit too. Yeah.
yeah, and now you're seeing in with the transfer portal, you're seeing people from Division Two go to Division One. So it's like
Yeah.
you can't think that.
Yeah. There's numbers here and statistics to show that. No, that's fair. Absolutely, I got you. So then what? So my final question about like recruiting, because I could talk forever about all this stuff, but I kind of want to ask this one to kind of finish up the recruiting side of things. Is what are some challenges that you faced recruiting, like when you first got in, maybe as the first year head coach to now? And this could go back to transfer portal. Doesn't there's obviously a lot of variables with recruiting, but what was like the biggest challenge you faced in the recruiting world, and then how have you kind of iced that over or kind of overcame that to become better at recruiting, right? Like I guess where you're at now, where you kind of found your sauce that you like to follow.
Well, when we got hired, like I said, it was COVID, so we couldn't physically see the players. We just had to go off of emails and video and whatever. And so the next year when we saw some of it, we were like, okay, there's some changes we want to make,
Yeah.
So as a coach, you start getting a better feel for what you want in particular. So obviously your first identifier is going to be talent. You want talent.
Yep.
You can't do anything without talent. But
Absolutely.
you have to find the right talent. So now we look for very, very specific things like, are you from a winning culture? Do you play defense? Do you love, like, are you committed to basketball? Like, I
Yeah.
need people who are committed to basketball. And I think just even those small tweaks with that, like we run a lot, we condition a lot, we don't sugarcoat that. So if you can't run, condition, and if that's not for you, then this is not for you either. So, so just having non-negotiables and saying these are things that we will not like. We can't. We have to stick to this standard.
Yeah. Right.
So once you tweak that to yourself, you start, like you said, becoming more of a flow because you're like, okay, you're adapting to what we need. You already came in with that mindset. Now I don't have to change your mind as much because you're already like, I'm a winner. I play defense. I run a lot. I don't complain about running,
Yeah.
So,
You kind of already got they've already kind of marked or checked off some of them boxes that you
for sure.
that you already find it right away. That's fair, absolutely. No, I like that. Cool. Yeah. You've mentioned a few times already, which I guess that right there kind of plays in factor into that culture that you mentioned, right? Like you've said that a few times about finding the athlete to fit the culture that you are trying to find, which part of that is just how you practice and your standards, right? But how do you build a successful culture on the level of buy-in and mindset?
It's a journey. It's a journey, but
Sure.
I think once you get people that are on the same page and they start seeing success, they start going, oh, okay, maybe this isn't so bad. And then the people that get it start bringing the other people with them. So, they might have a couple that are skeptical at first,
Right.
but then they see that, okay, all this craziness does work. so
Yeah.
so
Absolutely.
let's go ahead and buy into this and we just try to really emphasize being there for each other, playing for each other, because ultimately you guys are the ones that matter in this circle. Like you need to play for these people around you. You need to trust these people around you. People on the outside can say what they want, but they're not going through it every day with you like these people are right here. So just trying to keep instilling trust and into the culture, because I think that's a big thing. This generation, we have started doing mandatory team bonding.
Okay. Yeah.
So like once a month at least, we make them get together.
Get together. Yeah.
because I have learned that they have to hang out with each other, have to like each other.
Yeah. That's the term right there. Yeah. They have to like each other. Yep.
Yep. So that's way different than what we did. I'm not saying I didn't like my teammates. I liked my teammates,
Different. Oh yeah.
but it was different. Like if I didn't like them that day, I still went and played hard. Sometimes if
Yep.
they don't like them that day, then you don't know what you're gonna get. so
Yeah. Yeah.
so it's a little
Absolutely.
different.
Yeah.
No, I think that's important, right? Is the team bonding and coming together as a team. Because like you said, like on your worst days, you still have to enjoy being around them. And even if you don't necessarily enjoy being around people because of what you're going on, like like you said, like this is your sister, this is your family, this is what we have here. You have to learn how to coincide together when you don't want to, right? You have to learn to be around each other, just like any family, right? Like I'm sure there's been some Thanksgiving, some family get-togethers where growing up, if you had a family, well, not particularly just you, Coach, but like anybody listening, but like you have a sister, brother, whatever. There's days you hate them, but you have to know you still have to go sit at that dinner table with them, right? So I could definitely understand that. I like that, and I think that brings a lot of camaraderie throughout the year. So I like that a lot. So like obviously you mentioned as well that Virginia Union, I should say, had a lot of history as a team, right? Or maybe as a program. And so how do you build a successful program on the level of wins, and how do you sustain that over time?
Oh, yeah, the biggest thing is if I'm talking to a coach right now, the biggest thing is just sticking to what you believe in. You got to see it through. Like whatever
Yeah.
you believe in, you have to see it through. Don't let anybody change your mind. It's okay to adapt, but don't let anybody change your mind on like
Absolutely.
how you want things done. Um, and as far as players, like I said, it really, really starts with recruiting. You just have to
Hmm.
know what you're looking for and go after it. And if it's something that, like, if for me, for example, um, I don't know another word for lazy, but if someone gives off like
Yeah. Yeah.
they don't work hard, like bad work
Yeah.
ethic or something,
There we go.
that's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
no for me. So, like, I just have to say, I don't care how good she is, she's not fitting my standard.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
and then just reinforcing what you want constantly.
Hmm.
Like if
Yep.
you want them to play hard and they're not playing hard in practice one day, you got to stop it and you got to adjust and you're not going hard enough for me or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Just reinforcing that standard over and over. And of course, once again, talent, you got to have talent. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
Winning fixes a lot of things too, right? Like it helps
yeah,
with a lot, getting the right people in into and stuff too. So that's fair. Yeah, the laziness is hard, right? Like since COVID, I feel like I don't know when you graduated or any of your age and stuff, but like I know mine. I graduated high school 12 years now, so I was like a sophomore in college at this point, 10 years ago, and so we were a whole different game than what I'm doing now, right? And I'm sure the people before me, 10 years before me were the same way, right? Like they probably felt the same way about my class and my
My
age.
age.
So
So I
exactly.
think
it's we have to evolve as coaches and understand that we have to pick and choose more, probably a little bit more now than maybe they had to for us, because we just, at least my class, I feel like we were really hard workers.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe people nowadays feel that way, but I don't think so. um,
Yeah. Oof. I mean,
yeah.
there's a couple in there
Yeah.
that I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
okay, you were just brought, you were raised to work hard. And
Yeah.
there's a couple where you're like, you just got away with stuff, didn't you?
yeah, silver spoon for sure, absolutely, that's fair. Well, Coach, I have two more questions for you. One's going to be kind of the final philosophy question, and then I have a fun one I always like to end on. And if you're a basketball coach, which obviously you are, but any other basketball coaches out there listening to this far, hopefully you guys want to stick around for that, because it's the big debate question that I always
Oh,
have at the
yeah.
end. So yeah, it's the fun one for sure. Uh, so do you or let me say this? It's actually my favorite question. This question I'm going to go into. Name of the show, favorite question for coaches. Why do you do this? What's your coach's why?
Oh, my coach is why. It's and it's so cliche, but it really is the players. Just to get those phone calls, I have a player now that uses me as a recommendation and never tells me. And I always get an email about her
Yeah,
using
yeah.
me as a recommendation. She asked one time, and ever since then, she's just
Just
constantly
always,
just
yeah.
yeah, I'm just her lifetime recommendation, I guess.
That's fair, yeah.
But I love stuff like that because I'm like, okay, I had some kind of influence in her life where, she feels like she can call me for a recommendation. I have players that have gotten married and I've gotten invites, and I'm like, okay, this is awesome. Like, I'm watching you get married, and I watched you navigate through college confused, and now I'm watching you
Yeah,
get married. So just watching them grow as women, because I think sometimes women, we don't uplift each other enough. So
fair.
my
Mm-hmm.
why partly too is just to empower other women because
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's needed when you have people telling you what you can't do most of your life. Like for me, I was one of the only girls on the teams, so I had people telling me what I couldn't do a lot more than what I could do growing up. So that was a big thing for me. And then I have a passion for coaching. I just have a passion for basketball in general. So part of my why is my father. He's just watching his passion and some, I inherited the passion, I guess, but
Yep.
I still go to his house to this day and draw up plays and talk about basketball. And people will probably
Yeah.
get sick of us. So, so he's part of my why as well.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that you do it to your passion, but also for the kids. That's the biggest thing, right? Is to make, like you said, empower people, make good people, and hopefully, be that stepping stone for them as they transition truly into the real world. So I love that for sure. If you guys are still listening to this podcast, if you're on YouTube, make sure you guys HTB, hit that bell. Y'all know what to do. If you're an audio listener, right, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, podcast, wherever you are, make sure you guys hit those stars, leave a review, say what you got to say, but say it with your chest because Coach and I want to hear it. Coach, I'm on my yeah, you got to say it with your chest, man. You got
Say
you
it
can't,
with
you
your
can't,
chest.
say it with your chest. Yeah, yeah. Final question for you. This is the fun one. I always like to end it, and you've been around, right? You've been around different places, so I'm interested to hear your question here. What state produces? Yeah, here it comes. What state produces the best high school basketball?
Oh man, oh gosh.
Don't get it wrong here. You might have a recruit out here. Remember
I'm
that.
gonna have recruits everywhere coming after me because we go after everybody. um, you know, that's tough. Carolina has some good basketball. North Carolina has some really good basketball. Um, mm, yeah, that's tough. North Carolina's heavy. I mean, I can't say Maryland. Maryland has some good talent. Oof.
Damn. Yeah. Yeah.
I
This is the
mean, then
one
you
right
have
here. This is the
sleepers
one.
in Georgia.
Yeah.
Sleepers in Georgia for sure. Um, and in New York, I'm biased too, but
Hey,
um,
hey, you got to say one. I want to hear you say.
I know I
I want
got
to
to
hear you
stick
say
with one.
one.
Honestly though, North Carolina is a tough basketball state. It is.
Okay.
You can find talent in pretty much any area of North Carolina, whether it's the East Coast, the Triad. Then you go
Mm-hmm.
down to Charlotte. Like you can find talent anywhere in
Talent
North
everywhere.
Carolina.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, North Carolina. It's interesting that you say North Carolina. That's actually the state that I got the position in is North Carolina. So I'm actually moving out there this summer. So
Oh
Yeah.
well. Well, where are you
Yeah.
headed?
Yeah.
What part of North Carolina? I guess you can.
Laurinburg, St.
Oh,
Andrews.
okay.
yeah, so down south. Yeah,
Down near
Yeah.
Fayetteville.
yeah, a little south. I'm not going. Yeah, don't. Yeah, down by Pembroke. Yeah, trust me. I'm not going to. I'm not staying. I've heard J. Cole. I'm not. I'm not making my life. I'm not moving my way to the Ville. Right. I've heard about.
No,
Ville.
don't go to
We're
the.
gonna stay away. Yeah, we're gonna stay away from the Ville, right? I might go through to check
Uh,
out. I might go check out Forest Hills Drive just for, because that's my favorite
yeah.
artist. But
You ain't gonna catch me there on a Saturday after like
8
Yes,
p.m.
yes.
You know what I'm
As
saying?
they say, the Merc. Don't go to the Merc.
Yeah,
The
exactly. Yeah, I've heard about
Vietnam.
it. So yeah,
Yes,
that's the one I've heard is Vietnam. Yeah,
yes.
so I'm gonna pass on that for sure.
for sure. Um, well, Coach, I appreciate you jumping on here today. It's been a really good one. Thanks for talking basketball with me and talking a little bit about your history and where you are as a coach. So I really appreciate it. If we have a chance, I'd love to get you back on. Maybe as time goes on, maybe we can actually talk a little bit more X's and O's. Some coaches don't want to give up the sauce, which is
Fine.
fine.
Yeah.
But I would love to hear what makes you successful, kind of behind the scenes as a program, and maybe some things that you do behind there. So, would love to have you back on, but I appreciate you taking the time today.
All right. Thank you so much for having us and thinking about us in the CIAA.
Absolutely, yeah. I was very excited when you said yes to it. So I look forward to talking to you in the future. If you guys haven't already, you guys don't follow Coach Terry as well as Virginia Union, you guys make sure you guys go follow them on social media. Coach has Twitter. I'm sure there's Instagram and things like that. I'll link all that stuff in the description wherever you are. So go ahead and look at those. But with that being said, guys, we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.